So my goal is to get you to have experienced that first half of paraphrasing, so we don't have to paraphrase in the future. So that was a good way to stop and reflect that I might not be able to paraphrase every line where it ends. I might have to go sentence by sentence or just the whole stanza. When I read the stanza, what does that mean to me? I'm going to put it in one sentence. So it's sometimes because you feel limited by it. Because when we read poetry, we don't stop at the end. So we continue to the period. So let's take a look at this next stanza. Taken as a child, away from my family, my world and my home, across the turbulent ocean of the land of liberty. What is happening? He, the speaker, from the home. Yep.
Across the ocean to America.
Why do you say America?
Because the land of liberty is like 98% of find is America.
Okay, so, but we can't make that assumption yet because we're just paraphrasing. So, a land of liberty. Okay, great. So, taken from family across the ocean to a freer place, a place of freedom.
So like they try and go and find it, but then it turns out that it's not actually. They don't know. Yeah. So they don't want to go in case that it's not.
Underground Railroad.
Or maybe they like got scared because
it's fine to. We have to wait till the next step.
I guess once
I would go with your gut. You just have to
feel
look for
like
proof,
someone's
right?
telling you what to do, and they kind of like maybe they're already.
When you said like 98% of the time, you can assume those are things you're going to stop until the next step. Then you can start assuming and looking for proof. Like I think the land of liberty is this because we have the statute. Because I think look,
not have anyone talk
that might be the Underground Railroad. All of these things, right? Okay. So next stanza: sold into bondage, eternally enslaved with the hopes of one day walking free. Words of wisdom spoken in whispers.
So we got sold as the speaker got sold as a slave, and
you know that from the word bondage and enslaved, right? So that's a pretty clear guess. You don't have to guess at it. It says it right there in the diction.
So sold into slavery, hoping to one day be free.
Yep.
Beautiful. I agree with what you're saying. Because they don't want to risk having to get hurt, like by their own by going out to sea.
And is told of the wonders on the rails, the underground.
Where's the word wonder?
I don't know. I use that in my own.
Okay. Well, what about words of wisdom make you feel wonder? What?
I don't know.
Do you hear how beautiful that is? Do you notice? Well, we can jump into that later, but words of wisdom and whispers, how they use that literary term. Okay, so, something. Words of wisdom tell of rails underground. So, sold into slavery, hoping to one day be free, and
say rumors that there's a
beautiful. Rumors that there's a railroad underground. Why did you say rumors, Danny?
Well, usually like you don't, because it doesn't actually say there is, so instead of whispers, and when usually people say like rumors or like
I think that's a safe
the
bet.
first stanza
Okay,
when we're done.
follow the pattern. Okay, so now let's go back. This one's kind of connected to the previous one. So told of rails underground. Follow the pattern. Hung out to dry.
Swatch by
swatch, sewn together into a hand-stitched heirloom. As past generations
found their way to freedom.
So, follow the pattern out to dry.
Yeah, it was like, I knew as soon as she would finish, she would like be able to.
But where was the pattern hung out to dry above?
Follow the pattern hung out to dry.
What did you say about this one? It says, follow the pattern. Second stanza, okay. So,
generations found their way to freedom.
So maybe this like whole thing is about.
Mitch says this one
is about like the code, like it, whatever thing.
How do you see those patterns though? What are those
Now like something that's very important to them, and all the generations before them, maybe the people got used to.
Okay, well let's look at this transition quick into the next one and reevaluate. So, follow the patterns hung out to dry. Spoke of the way north to safety in the land of the truly free. Stitch by stitch, the story unfolds in swatches and patterns unveiled by someone's loving hands. So if we look how that bridges those two stanzas, follow the patterns hung out to dry. What's literally hung out to dry? Okay. Why did you say that?
Because, you know, like when you wash a quilt,
Is now
you
really
like beat it with
important
a
to them.
stick first,
Yeah.
and then, you know, you just let it there dry out.
Okay, so and there's patterns on quilt, and we thought of that at the beginning, right? Okay, so if we're following the patterns here, so this goes back to our title. Let's bring stuff together here. So let's go back down here. Follow the patterns hung out to dry. So the whispers in this rails underground follow the pattern hung out to dry. So if they're literally following that pattern, what are they seeing? Quilts hung out to dry. So follow the quilts. No, that's, based on, we would have to go back and say, oh, I remember seeing that before. I'm going to go back and think, now that I've gone through this poem, how am I going to reevaluate what that is?
Right now with the answer.
Together and the answer. Now, as past generations found their way to freedom.
That's how other people found their way to freedom, because they
So following the
How in the second stanza we first did a blanket, and then we started just going on with the slaves. So maybe we can change.
So now we're gonna go and let's do some assumptions. So we thought this was the United States, right?
The slaves be free.
We talked about liberty. Now we see the Underground Railroad. It's all making sense. Now I want you to go back and think about what kinds of things are there symbols, metaphors, similes, allusions, imagery. How do those things all fit into what the author is revealing about quilted freedom?
The authors.
Oh, you talking your little okay? Okay, I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. What you need to do now, our last thing, is 5 minutes for title and theme. This is where you go back. This is where you go back to the title. We made some thoughts and predictions based on not even reading the poem at the beginning. So now go back to that title and say, evaluate. Were we kind of in the right area? Did the author use this title maybe in an ironic way or in a more substantial way? Is it a driving image? Is it a driving metaphor? Is it a driving symbol? Is it nothing? Does it seem totally arbitrary to the whole poem? What is the role of the title now that we've read the whole poem? Then, once you've done that, you think, okay, when I think of this author, lots of authors write about this subject, right? Have you read anything about this subject before? What kinds of classes have you read it in? History. Yes. History. In history class. Why not? Elementary school, right? We read about these things. What does this author, how is this author's voice adding to that subject? What is she using that's different or the same or whatever to reveal something about quilted freedom? What is her message? Is it, you should make quilts? No. Probably not. Okay, there's, oftentimes poets we have the paraphrase, but it's that extra depth that Mitch was talking about at the beginning of class that really packs the punch and makes us understand something not better, but deeper really about the world. So what is it that she's expressing about the world through this poem? Do we have a different understanding of history, of ourselves? So think about what she's revealing, okay? So you have 5 minutes. So you guys can kind of jump into this part and fill in the gap backwards, okay? If you're not perfectly into this spot, that's okay, okay?
And then it makes it
You have probably enough. You don't have to fill in every little thing. This is just a model for us to look at the second layer, that literary layer, the how and the why. So that's okay. So we can go back to these another time. This is really just the practice. So this part took a long time, but it's valuable to go through the struggle. For me, that's what I care about in this lesson. It's not about, I'm not going to grade you on everything that you did. It's the grappling with it that's the important part.
So interpretive level, that's where I could write.
Yes. Now it's time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slavery.
What about slavery? This says
There's story.
quilted freedom.
Because the quilt's kind of like a story.
Okay, so that's the part that I want. So go back to say, okay, so now we know. Because it's the proof that I found in this poem, a quilt, and we can even use the line, with a quilt a story unfolds about slaves, just like you wrote.
Yeah.
How are we doing over here? Good. Are you guys reimagining and re-understanding the title, or are you done with that part?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Done? Okay, so have you written your theme? So what, when we think theme, determine the overall theme. The theme must be written in a complete sentence. So our topic is freedom and slavery, right? It's kind of more like that. Or quilts. All those things are the most important sort of things that are in that, the subjects that are in there. Now what is she saying about those subjects? So what about quilts? So what about freedom? So what about slavery? What's her message to us about that? So put it into a, kind of like when we wrote our last essay, we said that Haney and, do you need one? We'll break that. If you want, you can break it down by and then fitting. Or you can just, if they absolutely needed to understand that message, you can just move it on.
Get out.
When we said Haney and whatever used blank in order to express that truth, something about whatever you guys chose about truth and fiction, right? That humans need to read fiction in order to get a complete vision of the world. So what is she saying about quilts and slavery and all of that? Putting it into a whole sentence, just like we've been practicing with our shorter pieces. How are we doing?
What about frustrated?
No, because she's like all I can think of is please, but that's not the right word. Like, that's not what I want. I want
for the speaker's attitude, or the author's attitude instead of the speaker's attitude?
Yeah, it's not pity. It's just I don't know what the word is.
Is it factual? Is it in that category? Honest?
It's like a factual and self-experience, like to get out like messages.
Okay, so you think that she went to sleep?
Not her. Was she the author? Like,
she's the author. Does it seem like it? No.
But like,
so we have to split them into two.
Like putting self, like first person, it's like so whoever that person is not really like speaking in the poem, like using their personal preferences that happen to them.
Okay, so when we look back on something that happened to us, what is that called?
Flashback.
Like if we're writing, if I say, okay guys, we need to think about what happened, what we want to do different, right?
Nailed it.
Yeah, that's
right. I think that's what, and we do those kinds of things too. You just have to put it in the context of what we are to do. So it is reflective for the speaker, but what is it for her? What is she using this reflection to do? She's sending a message of what?
Freedom, per se, like slavery and like the quilted, like the quilt.
That's the topic, right? But what is she saying about that?
That was the that was the symbol of freedom.
Okay, so the quilt was a symbol of freedom. For freedom.
I think like the underground world is very true.
What's no, wait, Harriet. Good. Keep going.
Okay, know that they were part of the people with quilts.
Okay, so we can, when we're looking at poems, we can use a little bit of that nice background, but we have to look for proof. So where's the proof to say A, that it's the Underground Railroad, that B, these quilts are showing where to go?
Says,
I think it says underground, right?
Told of rails underground.
Beautiful. Okay, so check. We can guess that. Now, where can we show that these quilts indicated where to go?
Follow the pattern.
Yep.
That hung out to dry.
And that's like a kind of a quote because it has like that, so like it's saying what's said back then.
As past generations found their way to freedom,
they had different symbols like.
And was it just so the quilts weren't just quilts hanging out to dry? What were they really representing?
They had like different. Well, that was a house that you could stay at, or like if you're on the right path.
And if we look in here, stitch by stitch, the story unfolds. Those are the stories of these generations that are finding their way to freedom, right?
Yeah, and then they also
Good.
candlelight, and like they showed candlelight in the house if the light was on there, like.
Awesome. Yeah. So so we can bring that knowledge in, but we have to look for proof. We can't just assume. And you found it. You found the proof. Okay. All right. What I would like us to do, just briefly, is for just maybe 4 minutes, because it took us a little bit longer to do the paraphrasing, but for me, again, and I made this clear at the beginning, it's not like, I'm not going to take this and be like, oh, you got this right or wrong. I'm not expecting that yet. We're still in the process of getting used to doing this. And this was, even though it seemed kind of a simple poem, it was a lot more complex than it looked, right? Different words mean different things. There was this back and forth between slavery and quilts, and then at the end it was talking about like time had passed, and it was very confusing. So I just would like, and I'll go group by group, I would like the groups just to kind of share what you thought the theme of this was.